What's up, you guys? My name is Ray. Welcome to video number 5 of your required reading playlist. Today, we're reviewing Dr. Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. All right, so on April 16th, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King wrote what was a typed out 8-page letter to some clergymen in Birmingham. He's writing this letter to them because they are not happy that he is actually in Birmingham. He was arrested for violating a city ordinance against public protesting. And the clergymen just aren't happy that he's there. The reason they're not happy that he's there is because when Dr. King goes somewhere, he brings some serious energy with him. So they didn't want the energy. They had some other political stuff that they were trying to jockey around, and they just didn't want him there. So before we get into the video, I just want to talk about why I believe it's important to study and read what Dr. King wrote. The man was a genius. He was the civil rights leader of the 1960s. He was the man for a reason. And the guy, he was a tactician with words. And it wasn't just poetic. It wasn't just eloquent. The way he structured his sentences, the way he used certain words at certain times, the way he crafted his entire message, it was a story within a story with missiles and bombs that he just dropped on you. And it was like, what? Wait, what? And when you read the letter, I really encourage you to read the letter. Read it once to understand the message and kind of get that oomph from it. Read it a second time to understand that message better and get a deeper dive into it. The third time you read it, you're probably going to be bored with it. But then I really want you to look at the sentence structure and look at the phrases that he used and how he used them. And he first is speaking to them and trying to explain why he's there. The next thing he says is, you have been influenced by the view, which argues against outsiders coming in. He's taking the blame off the person that he's addressing. He's not pointing finger. In fact, he's trying his hardest to be diplomatic and remove that finger pointing, right? You have been influenced by the view, which means it's not your fault that that view exists, but you have let it influence you. Then he goes on to very pointedly say, but more basically, I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. So he is stationed in Atlanta. He's based out of Atlanta, but he has now come to Birmingham, and he obviously states the very famous quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." That statement is extremely important, and it's extremely important to us because in this day and age, you can get a lot of crap for caring about stuff. You get a lot of crap for standing up for what you believe in. And right here, Dr. Martin Luther King gives you every excuse, every reason to believe in what you believe in. Very matter-of-factly, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So if you believe in something and if you want to fight for something, do it. All right, so the next major thing that he does, and we're still on the first page of this typed letter, right? The next very big thing that he does is he talks about the 4 steps of nonviolent action. The first step being the collection of facts. We're going to determine, why are we upset? What are we upset at? And what is the problem that we're trying to fix? And is there a problem in the first place? So we got to do some critical thinking, right? So we're going to make sure that we're not just upset about nothing. And we want to collect all the information that supports our argument. Because the second step to nonviolent action is going to be negotiation. Negotiation meaning we're going to try our best to have a discussion with the person that we disagree with the person that is causing us harm, with the oppressor, right? We're going to try and negotiate with that entity to see if we can come to a solution. If we can't come to a solution, we're going to take a step back in our third step of direct action, which is self-purification. Self-purification meaning we're going to do a few things. We're going to go back inside ourselves, be introspective, make sure we're approaching this the right way. Make sure we've exhausted all of our options. Make sure what we're fighting for, that we already align with what we're fighting for, right? In order to be an ally to women, you can't abuse women while speaking out about abusing women, right? So in this self-purification time, it's time for us to just really make sure we got all our ducks in a row. Because the last and most effective step, if you've exhausted every other option, is going to be your direct action. And so direct action meaning our protest, our sit-in, whatever we're doing to get the point across, to get the message across, to cause that tension that he talks about later. Not violent action, direct, strategic, tactical action. And when you start to understand and read a little bit about what Dr. King did, he moved from objective to objective to objective to objective with such poise and determination and conviction that it didn't really matter who wanted him where. It didn't really matter who he was negotiating with. If he believed that he had to accomplish this task for progress, then he accomplished that task with or without your permission because he had all of his ducks in a row. He's done the self-purification. Another note on self-purification, and something that he did right before this protest that he got arrested for, was he prepared his protesters, his unit, his team for this action. He made sure that they were ready for nonviolence. He made sure that they were ready to withstand whatever was coming their way, and that they were ready to face prison time and whatever that meant. So he made sure that everybody was in the right mental state to attack these issues. All right, so the next big point that he tries to make is the need for tension, okay? Just as Socrates felt it was necessary to create tension in the mind so that individuals could rise from the bondage of myths and half-truths to the unfettered realm of creative analysis and objective appraisal, so must we see the need for nonviolent gadflies to create the kind of tension in society that will help men rise from the dark depths of prejudice and racism to the majestic heights of understanding brotherhood. He, in one sentence, just explained the need for objective, critical thinking. Okay? So, in all of these issues and everything that we face, you have to make sure that you're thinking critically and you're not believing half-truths and lies. You're not being duped by the system. You're not being tricked by the people that want to trick you into submission or into passivism, right? Or into complicity. So then he finishes with bringing everyone together with an understanding brotherhood. He's not asking for much. He's just asking for a community of people that wish to understand each other. It's really not that hard of an objective to aim for if people just gave that idea a little bit more effort. He's got another really cool quote in here about how groups tend to be more immoral than individuals. So this is a really cool one. A lot of people get so defensive when you call them out for something that you see in them. 9 times out of 10, most people in the United States hate what's going on right now in the United States. They want unity. They want understanding. It's the groups of people in that groupthink that can get really dangerous because people duck away from their own personal convictions and they dive into the group and let the group speak for them. And the group sometimes is going to speak for the good of the group at the expense of other groups. Okay, so now he starts really getting into it and he starts talking to the white moderate, his disappointment in the white moderate. He says that the biggest stumbling block for the Negro might not be the white citizens counselor or the KKK, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. So here he's starting to actually call people out for being bystanders. And that, of course, can be felt as kind of relevant to today as we see this kind of revitalized energy in a lot of these issues. Some people are choosing still not to take notice or not to take an understanding of some of the problems that people, if there are so many people screaming that there's an issue, if there are so many people that are hurt and upset, why not take some time and some effort and some energy in understanding why that person is upset? Dr. King is definitely not condoning you standing by and not being interested in what's going on with all of these people that say that bad things are going on. So he's really upset with people that just feel that it's better to have no tension than it is to have peace through justice. He also finishes that statement with a very important point that rings true today as well. You can't blame the people who have an issue with the oppressor for having that tension. You have to look at the source of the tension. The source of the tension should not be and should not be to you, the person who is being oppressed. If you hear someone saying that they're being oppressed, it's your job to turn and understand where that oppression might be coming from. You have to turn and make sure that what they're saying is or is not true. So now he's starting to bring up a point that it's really hitting home, especially with the events of this month. He says, now is the time to make real the promise of democracy and transform our pending national elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity. I mean, isn't it though? We've seen so much more interest in politics so much more interest in our democratic process, and so much more interest in these issues. If we turn away from that interest, if we let that interest dwell or go away, then we're going to lose a lot of good momentum. We got to keep that momentum going. The job is not done, and it's far from being done. Equality is possible, but it's going to take constant effort, work, and persistence. So I want to jump back up to the beginning of the letter. When you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the public amusement park that has just been advertised on television, and see tears welling up in her eyes when she is told that Funtown is closed to the colored children. And you see the ominous clouds of inferiority beginning to form in her little mental sky, and see her beginning to distort her personality by developing an unconscious bitterness towards white people. When you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who is asking, why do white people treat colored people so mean? There are parents out there teaching their kids what it should feel like to be black. There are parents out there teaching their kids how to deal with racism. That means it's a problem. So that quote is extremely important, and it hits home to me as a father because I've got to talk to my kids about racism. Talking to our kids about racism is a necessity when racism exists in the world. And I think that if you're a parent out there, you've got to stand in solidarity with other parents and fight for a world where we don't have to talk to our kids so extensively about racism. I'd much rather talk to my kids about racism as a history lesson than something they need to be prepared to deal with. But that just isn't the case yet. The second to last quote I want to share is, one day the South will know that when these disinherited children of God sat down at lunch counters, they were in reality standing up for what is best in the American dream and for the most sacred values in our Judeo-Christian heritage, thereby bringing our nation back to those great wells of democracy, which were dug deep by the Founding Fathers in their formulation of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. He's also highlighting how powerful the civil rights movement is for everyone, how much the identity of our country depends on how we treat our people. And he's calling on people to see the civil rights movement is an effort to perfect the American dream and the American principles that we believe we should be standing for. And the last quote, and I'll leave you with this: if I have said anything in this letter that overstates the truth and indicates an unreasonable patience, I beg you to forgive me. If I have said anything that understates the truth and indicates my having a patience that allows me to settle for anything less than brotherhood, I beg God to forgive me. All right, so the reason why this letter is in your required reading playlist is because it should just set the tone. It should empower you. It should give you some guidance. It should give you some marching orders. And it should really help make it easy for you to jump into this fight. We want to make sure that we are contributing when we can, we're not hurting people when we shouldn't be, and we're not standing in the way of justice, right? So get into this letter. It's super motivating. It definitely sets the stage. It should definitely set the mindset for what you might need to think critically, see the issues out there, and attack them head on. All right, guys, that's it. Marinate on it for a little bit. If you can, go back and read Letter from a Birmingham Jail for yourself. It's a really cool read. It's really quick, takes about 30 minutes. And then if you can, read it again. Make sure you like and subscribe, and then head to the website and subscribe as well, all right? Thanks again for tuning in. Let's make some good things happen.